In the game of war, while foot units can only move one space, mounted units can move up to 2 squares during a turn. Cavalry pieces are further enhanced with the ability to make charges. In the period of horse and musket warfare, mounted troops were the elite of the army. Highly mobile, they acted as its advance guard, outflanking the opposition's defences and raiding deep into enemy territory. Intimidating en masse, the cavalry were an army's shock troops, the irresistible force that swept away all before it. A good general had to know the exact moment to send these precious units into battle to secure the most advantageous objective. Committed too early against the wrong target, as the French cavalry was at Waterloo in 1815, and the army will have lost its mobile reserve. Waiting too long for the correct moment, like the Austrians did at Arcola in 1796, and the army will have already been beaten. The actions of the cavalry meant the difference between victory and defeat on the battlefield. Debord understood that an army could lose all of its mounted units in an attack and still win the game. In 1854, the charge of the Light Brigade destroyed the Light Brigade, but the French and British armies went on to defeat the Russians, demoralised by this demonstration of reckless courage in the Battle of Balaclava. Cavalry are there to be used and abused. Play the game of war, and you will learn how the artistic and intellectual vanguard must be prepared to fight and die in the victorious proletarian uprising against the society of the spectacle.
There is a terrible shock effect in a mass of cavalry moving forward. Only preeminently brave troops, equally seasoned in morale and well led, will meet it face to face. 49 times out of 50, one of the forces will hesitate, get into disorder, flee before the fixed purpose of the other. The resolute assailant does not have to slacken. He might not have been able to triumph in this uproar of routed troops without becoming disordered himself. But this disorder is that of victory, of the advance, and a good cavalry unit rallies in advancing, while the vanquished have fear at their heels. Charles Ardant Dupic, Battle Studies.
The master run ha-ha, and the black folks stay ho-ho, and it must be now that the kingdom's coming in the year of Jubilee.
Proletarians learn well the lessons of our history. Debord is a good teacher. The game of war is his meditation on the world-shattering geopolitical upheaval that had shaped the times into which he was born, the defeat of the 1917 Russian Revolution. Then, as now, radical intellectuals had to ask themselves the key question: do they have the moral strength to resist the temptations of Bolshevism? The working class movement is strengthened when they put their learning in the service of the revolution. But the Russian tragedy acts as a dreadful warning. The Bolsheviks, the leaders of the oppressed, all too easily became a new class of oppressors. How can radical intellectuals prevent themselves from turning into a little Lenin, Trotsky or Stalin? The game of war is Debord's answer to the political enigma of Bolshevism. The 4 cavalry units symbolise Lenin's aptly named Vanguard Party, the new class of warrior intellectuals who are committed to leading the impoverished masses into the high-tech future. In this game, the players must learn how to make the best use of these elite troops on the social battlefield without becoming Bolsheviks themselves. It was by organising the armed forces and eventually organising the Red Army itself that Lenin's party was able to defeat its principal enemy, other socialists. Purging their erstwhile comrades on the left gave the Bolsheviks exclusive ownership of the revolution, which quickly led to the military annihilation of the counter-revolution. The Red Army was the living proof of industrial modernity, a complex hierarchy of organisational, cultural, political and technical skills. Compulsory military service became the key institution in the proletarianisation of the Russian peasantry. And it was Stalin who became the oriental despot of this militarised degeneration of socialism into the concentrated spectacle. The victory of the revolution had been bought at a terrible price: the defeat of the revolution. In the game of war, the players learn how to avoid making the same mistake. During the first decade of its existence, the Situationist International had mimicked the Vanguard Party in its ideological intensity, with fierce debates over the correct political and cultural strategy decided through bitter splits and expulsions. Then, in May 1968, a revolution took place for real in France. The Bastille of spectacular capitalism was on the brink of falling to the insurgent proletariat. Debord now realised that the Situationist International couldn't act like the Bolsheviks. Victory could no longer be won with military methods on the new spectacular battlefield. Like cavalry units in a game of war, the intellectual vanguard must sacrifice themselves to open the way for the final assault of the proletarian army. The workers' councils, the premonition of cybernetic communism in the present, are the shock troops of our revolution. These are the lessons of May 68 that are laid down in the game of war. Every proletarian can play at being Lenin, Trotsky and Stalin on its game board, so that no one is tempted to become a little Lenin, Trotsky or Stalin. Sacrifice the nomad warriors of the vanguard party. Elite troops are expendable pieces in the struggle to build a truly human civilization.
It's a beautiful moment when an assault against the world order is set in motion. The charge begins slowly, picks up speed, passes the point of no return, and irrevocably collides with what seemed so unassailable, the bulwark of which was so solid and well defended, but which is also destined to be shaken and thrown into disorder. Along the way, many of us died or were taken prisoner. Many others were wounded and permanently put out of action. And certain elements even let themselves slip to the rear out of lack of courage. But I believe I can say that the situationists, as a whole, never swerved from the line of charge until our formation plunged into the very core of destruction. Guy Debord, injurum imus nocte e consumimur igni.
Overseer, he makes trouble and he run us round a spell. Well, we locked him up in the smokehouse cellar with the keys thrown down the well. His whip is lost, his handcuffs broken, and the master'll have his pay. He's old enough and big enough and ought to know better than to win and run away. Oh, the master run ha-ha, and the black folks stay ho-ho. And it must be now that the kingdom's coming in the year of Jubilo. Oh, the master run ha-ha, and the black folks stay ho-ho. And it must be now that the kingdom's coming in the year of Jubilo.